Alright, thank you for coming back for another video. Today we're going to be obviously working on the GT500 because, as you can see, I don't have the SN95 anymore. So any guys that have a GT500 know the common issue with the second gear lockouts. Last time I went to the track, which I didn't post the videos yet because I was embarrassed of the outcome, I had second gear lockout. So, amongst other things, I'm really dreading this TR6060 transmission. If anything, I think it is worse since I got the MGW. I cannot get this transmission to work for me. For the life of me, I cannot get this thing to shift. I can bang gears. I'm used to a top loader transmission. I'll bang gears in a T5 all day long, but this thing is just not jiving with my driving style. I have a hard time believing that I fucked up that MGW install. I don't know, it's just not working for me. So today we're going to try something that is supposed to help with the second gear lockout and may slightly help my shifting a little bit. Let's see what we got. Alright, so today's install is going to be an N2MB WOT BOX. You'll see the instructions there. As you guys know, the more time you can save on shifts, the quicker the car is going to be. So primarily we're going to be using it for the no lift shift, at least initially. We're going to see if that cures the second gear lockout at the track. You know, when we're doing digs, that's a big deal. When I'm doing roll races, it's not so much a big deal because I'm taking off in second gear, I'm putting it to the wood, and I'm just banging gears. The car does pretty good from rolls. I'm not going to lie, you guys see the videos, the car's consistently beating higher horsepower cars from rolls, so the car does good. But I'm thinking the addition of the no lift shift is really going to wake this thing up a little bit. How my clutch is going to hold up to this, I don't know. The next installment's probably going to be a line lock. Again, another thing I just cannot get straight in this car is, but nonetheless, I digress. Today's install video is going to be installing the N2MB WOT BOX in this car, setting up the no lift shift, and we're going to try out the no lift shift. I've never no lift shifted in my life, so we're going to try it out and hopefully everything works out good. So we're going to go ahead and turn this around, we'll get in the car, we'll get the car in the air and start on the install. Alright, so we got the car in the air, we got the passenger side front tire off. Next step is going to be to get some of that glare out of the video. We're going to pull out the, does that work better? We're going to pull out the fender liner a little bit. As you guys remember from my prior videos from installing the, let's see if that's better, from installing the wideband and the Z-Tronics box. So we're going to pull this liner out and pull the wires up through the passenger side of the vehicle, and we're going to go up through the battery tray. Alright, so we got the 4 push pins out, pulled the liner out, and then you're going to see the wiring back there. You're going to see the antenna wire, and then you will see the little nipple that I cut off last time to route the wiring for the wideband, and then I pulled it out and ran it out the other side. So we're going to go through that hole that we did for the wideband. Actually, before we get too in depth with doing electrical stuff, we're going to take out the battery just to make this a little bit easier, because we are going to be going up the grommet behind the battery tray, and I just think it's going to be a little bit easier to route everything up through without this huge battery in the way. So this is a 8mm for each one of the battery terminals, and then an 8mm to get the battery tie down off. Alright, so one key thing I found different in these instructions are the color coding of the wires. It said that there's supposed to be a wire that is black and red, or red and black. That is not in this harness. From what I understand, the orange replaced this. I don't know if that was to make it easier to distinguish between the red for the power to the coils and the red and black. Just make sure you got the right polarity or something. But that is replaced by the oranges. We're gonna take the wires for the watt box up through the connector in there, if you can see it, and we'll feed it out through the engine bay. And like magic, the wires start pulling through. So you just go ahead and feed those out until the slack there is up. And I already kind of have an idea where I'm going to mount the watt box, so I have a pretty good idea how much to pull through. So I'll go ahead and pull this through and show you where I'm mounting the watt box. Alright, we are back. I had to get a grommet. Again, I want to kind of do this stuff pretty nicely. I got a pack of grommets, assorted grommets at Pep Boys for $3. The grommet that you're going to want to use is a 3/8 size grommet. And that grommet is going to pop into the hole. You're probably not going to be able to see it right here. You pop that grommet in. And again, as I showed you, it's going to come up behind the battery tray, right about probably where my finger's pointing at. And then you're going to route the wires up. So, all right, wire is loomed up and it's through the grommet, as you can see. And the wire is coming up through the fender well. The wire's traced out. I got some wire loom on. Now we're going to trace up to the ECM. You're going to see 3 connectors on the front of the ECM behind your windshield wiper bottle. You're going to go ahead and flip out these plastic, gray plastic clips and totally unplug the clips from your ECM. And this is where you're going to be tapping into. Alright, once you get the plugs out for the ECM, you're going to see that they have little notches right there in the front where my thumb is, and you're also going to have notches on the ends of the clips here. These only go in one way. These may look, at least the top two, the ends look pretty much the same as far as that notch where my thumb is, but the notches on the ends are different, so they can only go in one way. Third one I can't show you because it's tucked down there, but don't get scared about that. I did try it out. There is no way to fuck those up, so you don't have to worry about frying your ECU. So this is where it's going to be a little bit tough to trace out these wires. The directions are a little bit confusing. So you're going to see the blue wire in the watt box is going to go in the white for the throttle position sensor, which is PCM input 17B. There's also another white, so the green from the watt box goes to a white, which is the cruise control clutch switch, which is 39B, which is also a white wire. So basically on here it says determine which connector blah 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 your green will go to. So I marked it here so I can remember without having to look over here. Green 39B white and blue wire B equals 17B white. So from what I understand, this is to go to the second middle connector, because the top connector only has like 4 pins on it. So when you count these out, the way you want to count these, and this took a little bit of research, top row, start at 1 here, goes across to 11, 12 through 24, 25 through, you know, whatever, 35, 36, and 37 through whatever, 48. However the numbers work out. I'm horrible at math, but you get the point. So for the whatever was blue, I said 17B. You go 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's going to go to this pin. You got to turn it around and trace out the white wire. So now, because there's 2 white wires, you got to make sure that you're tracing out the right white wire. So you can see right here is the white wire for 17B, and around the back side, you can notice it where my finger is, I taped it off just to mark it as the white wire for the, whatever the hell I said it was, 39B. So I'm going to go ahead and strip these back, get these wired in. Fingers crossed I do the right shit, because again, it's simple, but it's not simple. Alright, so what feels like 20 hours later, I got the green wire and the blue wire tapped in to the whites. I extended the one because it was a little tight. The other one, again, is just really tight quarters to try and deal with in here. So I did the best I can to clean them up, put some shrink wrap on them where I soldered them. And next is to go to yellow wire to the black and pink wire. Alright, so I got all the wires tapped into the plugs. This is not the cleanest wiring job I've done, but again, this is a little tight to work with. So you can see where I spliced in the yellow in there, taped it all up, spliced the blue and green in the middle plug, taped it all up. I'm going to loom everything back out once I get this together to see how it goes. And then I think just the orange wire and red wire got to go in under the fuse box and then the ground. Honestly, by the time you tuck that down there, you'd be pretty hard pressed to tell I did any wiring in there. Everything is tucked down good. I got enough loom in there that everything should be protected. Now we're going to get these over to the fuse box. Basically sticking the stanchions. You have a tab right here and a tab in the back to lift up the fuse box, and then you can lift this off to get to the underside of it. Actually lied. You do have to take these bolts out a little bit more to be able to slide off the back connectors where the wiring goes into the bottom of the fuse box to be able to get to back side of the wiring. So you're going to take off the green one, and then you pull these clips out to pull off the back side of the fuse box container. So pry these very carefully. To get to the back sides of the wiring. Right, so basically what you're doing here is you get into the back of this block, you're going to see two red wires right here, if I can get the camera in there enough. Basically these are the wires for the, and actually there's two wires, so I'm going to have to figure out which one is which on the block, but those go to the coil packs. Basically you're cutting those wires and you're wiring the watt box in between. So the instructions are a little bit different. They're calling for a red and a black and red. As I mentioned earlier, there is no black and red, it is orange. So what you're going to do is the red is going to go from the block to the red, and then from the orange back into the harness going back into the car. Alright, so if you have an 07 to 09 GT500 or maybe even a regular GT, the wire that you're looking for, it's this set of red wires and not the set of red wires down here. And when you line this up to the fuse box, it's going to go up to the fuse block like that. It's going to be this pin, I think it was, and it lines up actually 1, 2, 3, yeah, this pin, and you're going to see it lines up with one of these fuses here. That's how you know it's that one and not the one that's all the way on the end. The one all the way in the end goes to this relay, I believe. So basically I pulled back the harness there. I'm going to cut this in the middle, and then again, red wire is going to go to the block and orange wire is going to go back to the harness. Twist these up, get these soldered, and you will see that I have the heat shrink already on the line, and then that will fit over that nicely, and we will seal out that connection. So we're going to go ahead and pull this back. This shit that I have is a little sensitive, so if it gets heat anywhere near that, it starts melting very quickly. I learned that from doing the other sides of the harness. Okay, side at the block is done. Now we go on to the next one. That one's going to be tough to record, so I'm going to shut this off. Alright, so we got those soldered up. We're now going to heat shrink. Should have cooled down enough. And yes, I do have a heat gun, but I already have the soldering iron out here, so might as well use the soldering iron. And heat shrink that up, seal that up, all good. That side's done. And I got a little bit of a blob because the way that I was soldering over here, hopefully that fits over. And it's a little tight, so I'm going to have to cut this down a little bit to fit this over. Alright, so again, you got to watch with your heat gun. The wire started heating up a little bit, so I had to cut the heat shrink melted a little bit, so I had to cut a little bit back and cut it a little bit short. It covers the connection, but again, it is a little bit tight. So that's going to be covered up with loom anyway. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it shouldn't be an issue. I'm going to go ahead and tape it up all good, and then loom it all good, and then we'll put this connector back together. But everything's back in. You see some wires that got to get loomed up here, and then we're going to test everything out and set it up and loomed up. Now we're going to the ground. If you use the ground right here, you're going to use a quarter hole 1614 ring connector, and it will go over the ground. Alright, so we got the underhood stuff done. I just went and popped in the watt box in the glove compartment. I'm going to go ahead and do the next steps to test it, see if it comes on, and make sure everything is working correctly. Alright, so in order to test it, if you guys can see this, basically turn the car on accessory, put the pedal to the wood, and you should see the watt box blinking. Next, with the gas pedal still depressed, press in the clutch, and you should see the LED on the watt box briefly go out, then come back on solid for 1 second, and then resume blinking. Basically, this tells you, how to check the signals. So we're going to go ahead and try that out and pray for the best. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and watch the watt box. We're going to go in accessory, and you see the light comes on. That's good. And we're going to put the pedal to the ground. We got blinking, and we'll put the clutch in. Boom. So I think everything should be good here. We'll go through the next steps of testing. Alright, so because my garage is not very wide, I had to pull the car out of the garage to get the door fully open to be able to get the kick panel back in. So I got the kick panel in. Everything is pretty much done. I'm just going to do a little bit of tie wraps around the wire loom to tuck everything all nice. One thing I did learn is don't do any kind of electrical work that you think you're going to need to patch stuff up with electrical tape when it's hot out. It is humid as fuck. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning and it's already like 90 degrees, hence the sweatband, because I was just pouring sweat in my face. So I spaced this out over a couple days thinking it would get a little bit better, but it's just so damn hot and humid. The electrical tape does not stick very well. So chances are I'm probably going to pull the loom out once it gets a little bit cooler and trying to get a little bit of electrical tape. I had Scotch tape, not Scotch tape like clear tape, but Scotch brand electrical tape. That shit does not hold very good. You can see pieces of electrical tape all over the floor. Basically it had no adhesion, so I kept on ripping it, tossing it to the side, doing another one. So I'm probably going to grab some 3M tape once it gets a little bit cooler, see if I can rewrap some of that stuff. It does look very clean. Again, you can't really tell where the wires were patched into. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything cleaned up. I'm going to get it zip tied up, and we'll come back and we'll do a little bit of testing. You saw the initial testing. Getting the LEDs to blink. I got to load the software onto my laptop or my tablet that I use for my tuning stuff, and go ahead and do the configuration for the two-step and see how everything works. And see. All right, so we're getting ready to go out and make some passes tonight with the watt box. I downloaded the software from N2MB. I had to do a firmware update, so as soon as I picked the COM port that you'll see over here, you have an auto, or you can select your COM port. Mine was 4. You can check that in Device Manager. So I plugged it in. It said my watt box didn't match the software on the PC, so it did an update of the watt box. Next thing you have to do is set up your two-step if you want to use it. I am not going to use that for now. You need to set your car up, number of cylinders, etc. And then you need to match the RPM, clutch signal, TPS signal. So basically what you're going to do, you want to do a test. We're going to put it on accessory. And first thing we're going to do is put the pedal, the gas pedal all the way to the ground. And you're going to see the box blinking. You're going to do read, and it should show throttle down, and it shows TPS voltage is 3.75 all the way down. I let off it, do read, and it should say, now it's saying throttle position is up and 1.45 volts when it's up. So I'm going to do down on the clutch, and we're going to do read. It should say clutch down and 5 volts clutch down. We let up, do read again, it'll say 0.2 up. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn the car on. I'm going to put the throttle, actually I'm not going to do the car on. I'm going to turn on the N gauge, set the throttle about 70% and see what that TPS voltage is. I'm going to set that in there for the TPS threshold. Alright, so we're going to try and set it about 70%. And then we're going to do a read on here. And TPS voltage 3.24. So Make sure it's good. Yes, 3.24. Alright, so if you can see that, I turned off the two-step, set it to Ford coil pack, 8 cylinders, set the no lift shift to enabled, 125 milliseconds, 3.24, so around 70% it is going to hit. We're going to go ahead and do right, and it goes through sequence. It's complete. So now, everything should be set up. Alright, so another thing we want to do is we want to match up the RPM. So we got, 920. We're going to go ahead and do a read on here, and the RPM should be pretty close. So if you guys can see that, that is actually showing 899 and, 890s. Guys, I'm going to tell you, I am officially beat up, battered, bruised. My ego is just crushed. This Watt box kicked my ass. And honestly, it wasn't even because of the Watt box. My wiring is on point. I know what I'm doing. I built quite a few cars. Wiring is kind of my thing. But this thing was kicking my ass. I've been going nuts for well over a week. Actually, almost 2 weeks probably. I could not get the car to successfully cut timing. None of the functions worked. It was taking all the commands. It wasn't cutting timing. Been going back and forth with John at N2MB, and I was getting a little frustrated because he kept on telling me, recheck your wiring. I was like, dude, my wiring's tight. It's on point. It's good. Everything pins out fine. I actually ended up getting the shits of it. I was getting ready to hire a guy from 1320 Performance or something like that, somewhat locally, to come look at it and check it over. And by dumb luck, I happen to remember 2 weird coincidental things since I put this box in. First coincidental thing, since I put it in, is my intercooler pump has periodically been just shutting off. I thought the pump was going dead. It may be going dead. It may be a coincidence. But I started thinking too, when I was testing the no lift shift with the car in the key on engine off position, aka accessory, when I was doing a no lift shift to test the feature, I would hear my heat exchanger fans kind of ramp down as it was simulating the cutting timing, and then they would ramp back up. So I'm like, what the fuck? That's just weird. So I don't know why I started thinking about this. I started thinking about it more and more today. I'm like, you know what? I wonder if the wiring for the heat exchanger and the pump is in line somehow with that circuit. So as a backstory, if you guys, it's a pretty common thing for people to hook up a switch to their heat exchanger pump or heat exchanger fans to be able to keep them on in the pits, between passes. The way Brenspeed did this car, I guess they set it up to have the pump and the fans come on at key on engine off, aka accessory, which is great because I don't have to think about turning a switch on and off. So son of a bitch, don't I start tracing these wires, and what I found is there's a wire right here, and you're going to know about this in a second. The wire was going to this piece right here. This piece is what's called an ignition transformer capacitor. What this also runs in line with, because if you unplug this, car will not start, obviously. This runs in line with this cable that goes right to there, fuse number 40, which is ignition coil power wire. Right there was where I cut it out of the circuit. So I'm sitting here thinking, a capacitor is going to keep the voltage, because the voltage was pinning out a little bit weird when I was testing the function. I was like, capacitor is going to keep voltage in the circuit. Maybe it's that. I figured, hey, what the hell? Let me cut that line out of the circuit. And son of a bitch, doesn't it work now, coincidentally. So now what I need to do, take this for me, wasting a lot of time on things and going crazy with it when it can just be something that simple. So point to be known here, it was not my fuck up. I did not wire that. Brenspeed wired that, and actually they did a pretty sloppy job at it. Everything else they seem to do pretty good on the car, but that wiring was pretty sloppy on that. So I'm going to find a different, aka better, key on, engine off power source, so that way I can still keep my fans and my pump on in the pits. Right now, the fans and the pump will still work with the engine on, it's written into the tune where they're on constantly in some nature. Either it's by temperature or whatever. So they do stay on. I want them to go on with key on, engine off. Right here, I have the circuit. I want a little nuts here tracing this, and this is how I actually figure this out by dumb luck. Fuse number 40, that's where you're taking your power to your coils. And you're going to see that goes in line with your coil power. Branching off of that, you're going to see these two resistors. There's one on this side, and I think there's another one on that side underneath the intake, which goes down to this bus connector. So, boom, that does the trick. I just tested the rev limiter, it works. Tested the two-step, it works. It's raining out, so obviously I can't test the no-lift, but I'm hoping to get to the track soon. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a quick demo of it once I can get the car out of the garage and warmed up. I really don't want to bang it off the rev limiter or anything like that too much. Stock timing components, it is a built motor, but stock timing components, as far as I know, I just don't want to fuck around with snapping a timing chain. I don't need a two-step. I got a TVS. Car makes gobs of torque right away, so the two-step does not provide that much value to me unless I am able to bring down the throttle position threshold a little bit, so I don't have to do it at full throttle. Coming off the line full throttle, making boost, the car is going to blow the diff out the back, or it's going to break the timing chain or blow the tires in smoke. So I'm not as worried about that. I'm more worried about the no lift shift, because that is going to hopefully help me get rid of that 1 and 2 grind or lockout more so. So guys, thank you very much for coming back for another video, and then catch me on the next one. I got a whole bunch of other goodies to install in the car, and hope you guys come along for the ride and enjoy the videos. Thanks for watching.